So Clive, what in the world has made you join Exomnia, startup, revolutionizing data science, starting in real estate? This is a crazy ride. Why would you ever do something like this?
Well, seriously, the opportunity to work with you and Will, and two of the brightest minds I've ever had the opportunity of working with, and to help revolutionize, I hope, the sector, because that is what we're planning to do. And to help you by working in the background and doing the stuff that I think I'm reasonably good at, which allows you to get on and do what you and Will are so exceptional at doing.
So we brought you in because, one, you're an absolute veteran in what you do, and CIO of the stars and Perpetual and the whole world of it. We brought you in to get us enterprise ready. And a lot of startups at that, right? You can do a pilot, you can show some quick value, some initial benefit, but the jump to enterprise, to an actual rollout, to actually becoming a decision-making part of the business or replacing processes, That's the thing where I look at it and I go, I understand that chasm, and we want to get ready now. From being CIO and everything else you've done in your career, what do you think about that? And what advice would you give to startups?
In my experience, I've been on the other side of the table, the fundraising table, evaluating startups. And the one thing that I observed was that so few of them actually focused on the back end. They were interested in really was product.
Yeah.
And obviously product is critical, but without the back end engine and your focus on finance and policies and procedures and risk and governance, you are going to fail. In my opinion, you will fail. And so having the opportunity to step in that early stage and help to set that up to, again, in my view, ensure success is what it's all about. And to me, it's something that I've said to both you and Will, that is critically important to me, is to be seen to be a good steward of your investors' capital. It is critically important. And I think too many startups that I've seen have not actually recognized that. And they've taken the capital and basically not spent it wisely. And that's what I want to try to bring, is a focus on that to ensure that we are seen to be good stewards of our investors' capital and help to ensure success.
So you've been CIO across a lot of different orgs, and you must have seen every different version of promises. How would you evaluate a startup on whether you'd work with them?
Basically, look at it from that perspective. How well prepared are they? Because yes, I have engaged with startups in the past, some unsuccessfully, which is where I got my lessons from, as well as successfully. And the ones that I found actually worked well were the ones that actually put as much thought and effort into the back end as they had into the front end of the product, because that allowed them to actually ensure that they signed good contracts. And that's critical, because where did I make one of my early mistakes was negotiating too hard with a startup, and it essentially got a great price and ended up paying for it in the longer term, because I didn't pay enough to enable them to survive. And so they ended up collapsing because they're trying to kind of deal, but they ended up collapsing because there wasn't enough money left in the bank for them to provide the services that we needed going forward. So that was a critical lesson for me. So making sure that you sign those good contracts, that you have good people in the background that are looking after the front end is critical too. So I place as much emphasis on that as I do on product and the product team and support teams.
So given the world of data breaches, data privacy, and just the focus on governance, what would have you say yes to work with an early stage startup versus just spending money on the incumbent where no one gets fired?
Excellent question. And the world has definitely changed over the past few years around cybersecurity. So if I'm looking to engage with an organization, particularly where they are going to have custody or my data, and particularly where some of that data is either personal data, or in our case, confidential data, because we're not going to be storing personal data, confidential data. That's critically important to me if I'm sitting on the other side. I want to know that data is protected. So when it comes to cybersecurity, it's a layered approach that you take. And it is a complex approach. It's not something that an organization puts in overnight. It literally takes time. And so you're protecting the front end, which is around your protection, is critical. Biggest area of risk is actually people. It is people. So putting in place good training programs to train your people to ensure that they're able to spot your phishing or other potential attack vectors so that you can then reduce it. In the financial services sector, for example, the failure rate around phishing attacks is close on 30% fail. And if you do not address that, you are wide open. So, for example, I think it was either Optus or Medibank got hacked was because they got the user credentials. Mm-hmm. And then once they got the user credentials, they gave them the input into the front door, or back door, so that they could then execute their attack. So that's your biggest area of weakness. But then associated with that, you've also got to have your IDPS, your intrusion detection and prevention system. You've got to have your really secure backup so that if the hackers are able to get access to your data, that they can't encrypt it and then leave you crippled because they've also encrypted your backup. It's pretty rare nowadays. Most organizations have got that pretty well locked down, which is why now the attackers are now looking to get access to your data, exfiltrate it, and then hold you to ransom by making that data available to the public as per Optus. So they didn't try to encrypt the data because there wasn't any point by actually holding the organizations to ransom. That's where the value came from. When you look at Medibank, what were they asking for? $1 per client record. That was all they were asking for. $9.7 million was their ransom for $1 per client.
That makes sense. So let's talk about data analytics, infrastructure, AI, ML, visualizations, the stack you normally run in an enterprise. What excites you about Exomnia? What's different? Why would you come play with this versus kind of what the status quo is?
Because you take all the heavy lifting off. I've been playing around in the space for the vast majority of my career and implemented any number of data analytics tools and so on. It is hard work. It is high risk, and the failure rate is incredibly high. What is Exomnia doing is basically taking that heavy lifting off you, literally. So give me your data, and we'll combine it with our data, and then we'll put the analytics on top of that. We have pre-built all the templates, and in the visualization of that, drag and drop, so that non-technical people can actually build the dashboards that they need to be able to do the analysis and reporting, etc. Fast, efficient, with full, scalable, but also with the integrity and also
the field level security.
Building that field level security, but also the fact that you've got full access to all of the decision points along the way, rather than that opacity which typically exists in the existing organizations. So that, to my mind, is just so critical, but also makes it so easy. It literally makes it so much easier than me trying to build all of that myself. It would take years to do, literally years, and cost an absolute fortune.
The change management and user adoption is just hard. Like, it's not to say you can't do it, but
hard.
I don't know, did you see that a lot as CIO? People are used to really slick, amazing consumer tech, and then we got to shove change management of legacy systems.
What is one of your biggest challenges as a CIO? It's shadow IT. Why does shadow IT exist? Because you make it too hard, and your consumer tech now is so easy. That's where people will automatically go, is to that consumer tech, because that's their experience. The tech that they have in the palm of their hand, the tech that they have at home, is so easy. And yet we so often make it so damn difficult.
Why is that, do you think?
I think a lot of it comes down to risk management. and the fact that as CIO, you're primarily in charge with protecting the organization. And that is a serious charge. It really is. But I've always held the view, and it was inculcated in me by a number of CEOs that I've reported into, was that my job is to figure out how to say yes. Because it's so easy to say no, and you can fully justify saying no. But what does that get you? It gets you shadow IT.
You're saying is, if you can't beat them, join them. What's the wisdom there, I guess? You spend a lot of money and you lose anyway?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. So as I see it, my job as a CIO within an organization is to basically stand shoulder to shoulder with my peers, with my colleagues, and to figure out what is it that they are trying to do and how do I help them do that, to not get in the way, to not put grit in the engine. So how do I say yes? And it's not always easy. It really isn't. But I genuinely believe that if you work hard enough and you work with really genuine and good intent, you can make it happen.
I love that. So I know you really well, and I know it's one of the reasons I want you to come. You're coming as CXO of Exomnia. We couldn't be in safer hands. In 3 years from now, right, all goes well and we hit all the milestones, and I'm quietly confident we can, given the traction. What would be a big win for you in 3 years if you could look and say, we did that?
I think for me, the evidence will be in that we will actually be able to change the way the sector operates, literally, because I think what we are bringing to the market is something that will change the sector, it will change the way that the sector operates. We'll be bringing to the masses, the consumer level technology that basically anyone can pick up and utilize. Because we're not just doing it for the private sector. We're actually doing it for any sector where they have got data that they want to be able to analyze and visualize, enable them to make better decisions, really good decisions very quickly. So it'll be that. More selfishly, it'll be, I'm hoping that as a company that we can build collectively, a company and a culture that we can be truly proud of. And that I can ultimately walk away from whenever that is and look back at that and be genuinely proud of what we've been able to do, both to a sector from a technology perspective, but I think for me what's more important is as the way that we would engage with and treat people. That to me is critically important. And that people who work in the organization will be incredibly proud of working in our company.
So what would make you proud?
That I have been able to mentor and bring people up to basically take over from me. So I've got 3 roles at the moment: notional CIO, COO, and CFO. To be able to bring in people and possibly even relatively junior people and then mentor them in and up to take over from me, do it well, do it really well. So ideally accelerate their career progression. And then for them to be able to step in and take over and